And we're back. Now we've got all these on different layers, and we could, in fact, and it wouldn't be a bad idea, go into the layer dialog box and then lock those layers as well so that they don't get changed. So the points layer we locked, I couldn't lock dates and times before because I needed to move things. Now they're all locked. Now I can't move them. They're locked in place, and all that expensive equipment I used to find all these points, I didn't use them, but the city of South Portland did, is not going to be wasted when these things get inadvertently moved. Now we've got this whole large collection of things, and it turns out that the city would also like to add some attribute values to each of these points. And I'm just going to put the attribute values over here. Creating attributes, we'll just go through that right now quickly. And I'm just going to make the attributes in this location right here because it really doesn't matter where I put them for right now, and you'll see why in a little bit. I'm going to use the @def command. AT would be the alias, ATT would be the alias for that. And I'm going to create a new attribute. And let's just say we have an attribute called cost. Now that wouldn't be a good idea. How about size? I have an attribute called size. The prompt when you make an attribute, I like to use the tag name with a question mark. And let's say that most of these pipes are 12-inch pipes, so I'll say the default size is 12. Under justification, I'm going to make these right justified so they come off from the right end. We'll still make them annotative, which is the same as what we're going to be doing here. Text type 0.12. And rotation angle, we'll leave that at 0. Specify a spot on the screen. Yeah, and we'll lock the position. That would be a good idea as well. We're going to make them visible, however. So I just put this right here, and you notice it jumps over there. Now, if I wanted a few more attributes that were a little different, what I could do is say, I'm just going to put a group of these together that also kind of sit on top of each other. And then I'll edit each one, and when I go in, I'll say, well, in addition to size, I also need to know what these things are made out of, material, for instance. Whatever the tag is I use, I would just go ahead and use the prompt with a question mark for the same thing. And I'll say my default is iron. Let's say most of this is iron. Pick OK, and now I have a different attribute right there. Now I'll edit one more. And the other attribute I asked you to put on there was something called ID, as in ID number. We'll do ID with a question mark. And let's just say they all have different numbers, but the format for the numbers is something like that. So I put that format in as my default. Now these are only attribute definitions. They don't become attributes until they're locked into a block. So the job now, once I decide what these are, and I believe they wanted 15 or 20 of these, is once you've created them, then you have to go and create a block out of each point and those 3 pieces of text and those attributes, then reinsert the block at that location without moving it, and then fill in the values for what those are. With 134 of these, you can see it's going to become really tedious, and actually when you're all done with a city the size of South Portland, you're more likely to have many hundreds of these things. So what are you going to do to put that over here on all 134? You're going to rely on something called AutoList. AutoList is a programming language that's built into AutoCAD. It is used mostly by users. Real serious programmers, application developers would be using VBA and possibly C# and .NET, much more likely, but still some very serious programmers are using AutoList. And what I have here is a program that I wrote for the city to automatically place those at every point in a drawing. Now you need to know how to use an AutoList program. And the way to use an AutoList program, if it exists, first it has to exist, is to go to the app load function. AP is the alias. Application load allows you to load a program written by somebody, and the number of applications that are possible are the kinds of programs or languages. Autodesk Runtime Extension, or ARX, LSP, which is what we use and which a lot of users use. And then we have some of the VB and some other Visual Lisp, etc. kinds of things. What I'm going to do is to limit my search to Lisp programs because that's I know what I'm looking for. And the Lisp program I'm looking for is also on the R drive. It's in the 160 folder. And in that 160 folder under South Portland, you'll see that there are 2 Lisp programs in here, @block and leader. @block, I'm going to load. That's a program I wrote to place attributes into a block automatically. We just quickly take and open that up. This would look better in Visual Lisp. What it has is a little code, looks pretty startling to you right now, I'm sure, but the whole point of this is to have something that will automate a procedure that would otherwise be really, really tedious. When I created it, and the reason I opened it is to show you something, when I wrote this, I created a new command in AutoCAD called ATTBLOC, and that's where I created it right there. When you see a defund C colon and then a name after it in an AutoList program, what somebody has done is created a new AutoList command with the name that follows the colon. The C colon is not a C drive, it means command. Defund means defined function, and this is the way this program says we're going to define a new function that acts like an AutoCAD command, and the name of that function is @block. Now that the program's loaded, that means we can actually use the command. I type @block, comes up, asks me to select objects. It says select the attributes to attach to points in the order you want them to appear. I want that one first, this one next, this one, I've picked them. Now it says select a point for the group of attributes. Select point, selection point. In other words, where do I want this group to sit in relation to that point? So I'm going to take the insertion point of the first one, and you notice it's flashing around, and all of a sudden something shows up over here. What you have just done is created 134 blocks when you do it, what I've just done. 134 blocks, each of which now has attribute data associated with it. The block was inserted back in the same location, and all the layers are locked, which means there's nothing you can do to mess this thing up. That's how you use an AutoList program, and this is why you should learn how to make your own AutoList programs, because imagine how long it would have taken you to do that on your own, which, by the way, you're welcome to do if you don't want to use this program.